Why did the Eagles win that game? It was the defensive line, correct?
The defensive line was absolutely dominant.
Okay.
Just, yeah.
How many of those defensive linemen, well, where did those defensive linemen play their college football?
So the Eagles technically run a 3-4, but it's kind of like you talk about with the Jeremy Pruitt, the one guy plays with his hand up that could play. That's basically a fourth defensive lineman. You know what I'm talking about? And if you count,
it's kind of different from James Pearson, a 4-point stance. But anyway,
yes, exactly. But basically, if you include that, then the Eagles had 3 of their 4 defensive linemen playing for who having graduated from Georgia. And I'm talking about Jordan Davis at nose tackle, Jalen Carter, and Nolan Smith Jr. All came from Georgia. And they all wreaked havoc in that game. Just absolutely all destroyed it, which is why someone made the joke that Jalen Hurts got benched in the national title game because he couldn't do anything against Georgia's defensive line. But then he teamed up with Georgia's defensive line in the NFL and became Super Bowl MVP.
Okay, so Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank member FDIC, life made better. Do you believe that the prospects that are out there considering Georgia or another school should take a discount like players did from a playing standpoint, not an NIL discount, but of a playing standpoint, they would be willing to sit for 2 years like they did with Saban? Do you think they should? And he had a little bit of a discount towards the end of his NIL era, but do you think that players, let's say it's your son, Quincy Calhoun, he's going to Georgia, and Georgia has agreed to pay him $500,000, okay? Or he's going to Alabama, and they're going to pay him $750,000. You take the discount to go get coached up at Georgia.
Yes, I would. Honestly, now if you bring up Tennessee with Rodney Garner, I may listen a little bit differently. But specifically Georgia, specifically with the defensive line coach they have there and Trey Scott, who I think is a young Rodney Garner and will be like the most respected defensive line coach in the SEC of all time in 20 years. Yeah, I would take the discount to go play for Georgia. Honestly.
Okay. Bank on It. Caleb's Crazy. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Member FDIC, life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
Okay, so let me make sure that I got you right here. You're telling me that you would take $250,000 less from, let's say, in Alabama, and I took Tennessee out of the equation because you went there, and there might be some heartstrings, and you like Rodney Garner, obviously. I don't think he's going to be around.
There's no heartstrings. It's more about just you don't lose as much potential going to Rodney Garner because Rodney Garner's going to get you to the NFL too.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do here for funsies. You said $250,000 would be a difference, right?
Correct.
Okay. $250,000 just if you make 8% annually for 25 years is $1.7 million. Caleb, you can't turn that down. You've got to take more money. And listen, I understand the argument of going to Georgia and having, and it's not just the players that have gone there, and it's not just their coaching. I can tell you right now, I've been around a program where the NFL scouts didn't trust your guys, but I've been around programs that the NFL scouts did trust your guys implicitly. And I think that you benefit from going to Georgia because, yes, you're going to be trusted implicitly, but over the course of 25 years, when young Quincy Caleb would be coming up on his 50th birthday, to have 1.7 million in the bank, you just can't turn that down. You can't turn that money down at that age. And I love Quincy, and I think he's one of the more athletic 9-month-olds I've ever seen. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you, there's a 50-50 chance he's a bust.
Okay, but what?
Stats.
Okay, so you're saying, okay, what about this? So you said 500 versus 250, right?
Okay.
So 250, you're still getting that 1.7 million. The difference is it's 3.4 million versus 1.7 million. Because you put that 250 away, it's still 1.7 million with the APR because you did it with interest rate, right?
Well, kind of the reason I picked those numbers is like you could take the 500,000 and buy Jordan a house, Quincy's mother. You could buy your own house. You could set yourself up where you're not paying interest rates. 500,000, depending on where you live, should be able to do that.
Okay, what about this? 500 versus 450.
Oh, then I'm going to Georgia.
Yeah, so you are saying there's a discount on the table right now to play defensive line at Georgia.
Well,
it's just not much. You made me make a point with the 250,000. Like that's 500 versus 250. That's leaving a lot on the table because that's over 4 years. That's life-changing money, even if you're a bust in the NFL. That's a life-changing level of money difference. But 500 versus 450. Now again, over 4 years, that's $200,000 plus. I don't know what the 8% return is, so you're still leaving a few $100,000 on the table, honestly. But isn't that worth the gamble to go a higher round in the NFL draft, given the money difference in the rounds in the draft?
I love to gamble, okay? And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say my limit at times that I've gone in, but let's just say it's been decent 4 digits. And I've won and I've lost. But it's still a gamble. And I couldn't possibly, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I've gone in and said, hey, I can lose $1,500. And that's my limit. But that was for a week in Vegas. So, but 250,000, that's a gamble, buddy. That's scary.
Yeah, so I'm with you on the gamble. That's probably too much of a gamble. Also, because the risk reward, you're not devalue. If you're choosing between Georgia and Alabama, you still have a very good chance of going to the NFL at Alabama. Like, it's not like you're like eliminating your NFL prospects going to Alabama. That's why the 500 to 250, it's like, okay, yeah, take the money. But 500, 450 over time, again, over 4 years, if you include interest rate returns and you're putting that money away, you're probably leaving on a similar point, Dave. You are leaving, I would assume, $500,000 or maybe $400,000 on the table. Like technically 200,000, but now, interest rate returns 350.
Now I will say this, as far as the Saban discount that said you got to sit for 2 years. If I'm just pick Nico. Okay. Nico can go wherever he wants. Nick Saban's in love with him, but Nick Saban says, son, we're going to play some goofball named, what was his name? Carson. What's the guy's name? The quarterback.
Carson Beck?
No, Alabama. But anyway.
Jalen Milroe? I don't know.
Okay. You're going to have to sit behind him for 2 years. I would totally do that. And I would tell my son to totally do that. Sit for 2 years.
Yeah. If it's not leaving money on the table, sit for 2 years. No, I'm with you on that. I mean, you can, and Saban did have a lot of players taking discounts, but we're seeing with Kirby Smart versus Nick Saban right now. Nick Saban, they were both defensive backs coaches, Dave, but you can tell Kirby Smart, Nick Saban built from the back end. He focused on the secondary first, didn't he? Like he built around defensive backs. And Kirby Smart's building from the defensive line out. I don't think Saban did that as much.
I think they're probably a little bit more similar than that. I think they both got to their respective campuses and said, we don't have the big nasties. And as a matter of fact, if you remember in Kirby Smart's introductory press conference, he gets like, I've looked at these guys. They're not big enough. It's not going to work. It's kind of hardcore.
Which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because it's not like Mark Richt didn't recruit well at Georgia. He brought the talent in. But yeah, I just think more like if you look at Alabama, like when you talk about Alabama players in the NFL in the Saban years, the first people that come to mind are cornerbacks from defense. With Georgia, it's the front four. It's defensive linemen. And they just, they just absolutely torched Kansas City the other night. I think that Super Bowl, the question is, and should Tennessee be concerned, do you think that Super Bowl is going to give give Smart a discount for players and allow him to load up on the defensive line that should not be possible in the NIL age?